Let's talk about driver selection. In order to get the tonal characteristics you're looking for, you have to give up other characteristics that you would want. This is why we don't have one speaker that plays the full range of music at loud volumes. You can make a speaker that can play all the range, mostly, at low volumes, because it takes a lot less perfection to produce a tone at a lower volume than it does at a higher volume. A lot less. It's a lot easier. That's why we had, back in the days, we had little 10-watt speakers that would fill your whole room with sound, but it wasn't great sound. And over the years, we've gotten better and better at making better sound. But the compromise is we use multiple drivers to do different jobs. And then you've got to factor in crossover points and networks and how much power all that consumes. And the efficiency of all the drivers and how linear they are about moving into the next dB range. So you may have a tweeter and a mid-range that play well together at, say, 60 decibels. But when you push that tweeter up to 80 decibels, the mid-range driver can't keep up, so it falls behind. Or maybe when you add more power to both of them, they don't linearly move up, so the mid-range will actually start to get louder than the tweeter, or vice versa. They're not linearly progressing up in volume. And volume doesn't just mean the volume knob. Volume also means the dynamic reproduction. So you may have a soft part in a song and then a loud part in a song. And the soft part, everything's playing together. And the loud part, the mid-range, is overwhelming the tweeter and it sounds like garbage. Which is why typically you want to buy your front stage driver sets in sets, because you get stuff that's matched to move throughout that power range linearly and as a single driver. So you got multiple drivers trying to act like they're a single driver. It's like having 5 go-karts trying to pull 1 horse trailer, all with different engines, all with different size tires, all with different drivers. Finding the right 5 people that can do that job and getting them where they can synchronize their movements will be tricky. And it's the same concept with, putting together multiple drivers to reproduce a sound or a range of sound in an audio track. So if you're going to design your own component set, you need to understand why you need each component and what role it has to fill. And they also need to have similar efficiencies. There's all kinds of things going on, all kinds of stuff. Efficiency is a major variable in knowing how much power you need for a driver. The RMS wattage is the maximum constant power that driver can take, but given a certain frequency range. So if you put 1,000 watts on a tweeter that's made to pay 3,000 hertz to 20,000 hertz, that may be fine. But if you dropped it down to, say, 1,000 hertz to 20,000 hertz, you may have to reduce that wattage by a significant amount to keep it within the ability of that driver to handle that power. So power handling comes with quotes. It'll handle this much power as long as you're playing it within this range at these slopes, so that it never gets below or above a certain area, because doing so takes it outside of the perimeters it was designed to operate in. And then you're going to lose that specific power handling characteristic that speaker has been assigned. All of these things have to work in concert to produce a driver and, or even more complicated, a driver set that can do a job together in a unified way that actually sounds good. Because in the end, you're not just pulling a horse trailer, you're pulling it with finesse. You have to have it pulled exactly right, because your ear is very discerning. Any little jiggle in those chains connected to that horse trailer you can't have that. It's all got to be perfect. These guys have all got to maintain perfect tension on those chains throughout the whole acceleration, deceleration, everything has to be synchronized. Your ear will pick up any nuance that's wrong, and it will upset you. It'll mess with your brain. So if you're wondering about why it costs so much money to go buy a set of focal speakers, when their basic components are the same as most any other speaker, it's got a cone, a coil, and what's so different? The difference is the sheer amount of work and time and effort and education that it requires to design a cohesive unit, even just in a single driver, a cohesive unit of components and specifications that can accurately and reliably reproduce tone, within an entire power range, an entire volume range, and being able to do that and then have it be efficient and also be marketable and also reproducible and buildable, and it's just, the logistics are insane. They say it takes 1,000 companies to make a shoelace. 1,000 companies to make one shoelace. Now, how many companies, how many people does it take to design a mid-range speaker? Yeah, is a lot. So even though the materials may not be ridiculously expensive and the overall construction of the final product may be relatively inexpensive, they've got to get a return back on all the research and development and the work it went into designing that boutique item. They're not going to a build house where they're using tested equipment that's been used and these. So like, okay, why could Scar, for example, build a driver that is similar in performance and overall sound and quality and all that to something like Hertz, the Hertz Millis, for example? And the reason they could do that is because the Hertz Milli has been reverse engineered to the point to where someone could literally build an identical speaker to it, and they avoid the research and development that went into it. So all they have to do is just produce the product. Now they're going to cut costs whenever they can to keep the basic flavor there, but get the price as low as possible. And so you're going to end up with a probably 85 to 90% match, And then, but the thing is, whenever you say Joe Blow wants to build a new speaker and he goes to a build house, he can say, well, what kind of designs do we have to work with, to start with? And they say, well, we know that this cone and this, all this stuff works well together and it's a good matched set. It handles power well, it's very linear and blah, 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 blah. Because all these designs have been done a long time ago. And then you can say, well, I want it to be a little bit more of this, a little more, and you get it flavored where you want it. And you put, I want it to be, I want to have a nice shiny ring on it. I want to, and you get it built the way you want it. And you say, okay, make me, 1,000 of those. So now you spent, an hour, a week, a month, going back and forth over design characteristics and cost and manufacturing cost and shipping cost and all those things, and you've got the product. Whereas the original designer that come up with a lot of those concepts spent years and paid hundreds of people over the course of years, decades, building up a knowledge base to design something that was cohesive and functional, and cost them a lot of money to put product on the market. Does that mean that the product that you get in the end is different? It can be. If it's something like a knockoff focal, for example, there are fakes out there that you can buy that literally, it looks like it came out of the focal plant. The box, the instructions, everything. And tonally, they're very, very close. That's not always the case, but sometimes it is. Sometimes tonally they're exact. But the difference is one company has stolen the IP from the other company and they've stolen their branding and stolen everything, and they are producing something that they have no real investment in creating. And so they can sell it for a lot cheaper. Ultimately, in the end, it's not you get what you pay for, it's you get what somebody else paid for. Somebody paid for it. And, you know, that's just how that works. You know, was it a big, huge corporation? A small mom and pop shop. Somebody had to pay for that design. Somebody had to pay for that to be perfected. And it's not easy. When you're dealing with woofers, subwoofers, mid-range, tweet, it don't matter. There's always a ton of compromises you have to constantly consider. So where you want a driver to be more efficient, you know, you got to give up the linearness of it, because you got to make the cone really light, which means you got to make it thin, which means it's not going to handle low range very well, and it may break up in higher range or in mid range at higher power. It may break up some. Is that important to you? You're always going to sacrifice something. The Trinity, it's always in everything. You can make a cheap car, you can make a fast car, and you can make a reliable car. But you can't make a cheap, fast, reliable car. You can only have two. Fast and reliable, not cheap. Cheap and fast, not reliable. So forth and so on. Same thing with speakers, same thing with everything else. If you want it to be loud, it's probably not going to sound good. If you want it to sound good and be loud, it's not going to be cheap. Right? There's always three. And you can only have two of the three. So picking out drivers, first thing I would recommend is that you do your research and understand how drivers reproduce sound. You need to spend some hours. Okay, you need to at least spend some hours digging the internet. The information is out there, and you need to learn how the driver works, why it does what it does, so you can start to get an understanding of what characteristics of that driver are important to do the job that you want to do, and how to match those characteristics up with the characteristics of companion drivers that go together and create a set that can sonically work together as a team and reproduce a 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz accurately and reliably. And once you've done that and you start digging around and finding the right stuff, you'll slowly start to realize just how much effort goes into making that happen, and how important it is to do all that work, and how significant it is that those researchers have spent all those years and all that much money getting to that point. So you might just go to JL and buy a 3-piece combo for $800 or $1,000, and you go, you know what, that's a good deal. Having said that, like I said, you can find all the same stuff, but you just have to know what you're looking for. So you've either got to do the research and learn, or you've got to pay for somebody else to give you the knowledge that they have acquired after doing the research and learning. Or you can watch YouTube guys like me and hope that you pick up enough to get the job done. And if you guys enjoy my content, please hit that subscribe button. I'm not working anymore. This is my full-time job. I have medical issues that I'm dealing with. And so subscribing to my channel helps me out a lot. Anyway, guys, hit me up in the comments for information and I'll try to respond to them.